My name is Sophia. I am 27 years old. And the day my grandfather's will was read, my parents looked me in the eye and tried to blur me. I was sitting at this long, polished table, hands folded so tight my knuckles went white, while my sister smiled across from me in a designer dress, already acting like she owned the room. The lawyer cleared his throat and started with what my parents called the main part of the will. That was when my mom leaned forward, all sweetness, and announced that my sister would be receiving $15 million from my grandfather's estate. My dad slid a stack of documents toward her, and everyone murmured congratulations like it was some kind of fairy tale ending. Then he turned to me. No folder, no check, not even a token. He just shrugged and said, almost bored, your sister gets $15 million. As for you, Sophia, you can earn your own. Grandpa didn't want you to have anything. My mom nodded and added. He said he was done with you. You chose your career over family. This is what he wanted. I felt the room tilt. But I did not argue, did not cry, did not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I just stared at the table and listened to them rewrite the story of a man who had once been my biggest supporter. And that is exactly when my grandfather's own lawyer pushed his chair back, stood up, and said there was a second document, sealed and hidden, that my parents had never been allowed to see. He said it was meant to be read only when everyone was in the same room, and especially when I was present. Have you ever sat there while your own family decided you were worth nothing, and wondered if you should walk away or wait to hear the one secret that could blow everything apart? Because what that lawyer read next is the reason my mother ended up screaming in front of everyone. Daniel Park, my grandfather's attorney, didn't flinch when my mother snapped that there was no second document. He just adjusted his glasses, slid a thick, sealed envelope out of his briefcase, and set it on the table like a bum. Mr. Arthur Hayes gave me explicit instructions, he said calmly. This codicil was to be kept confidential from everyone, including his son, until the day his will was read with all immediate family present, especially his granddaughter, Sophia. My mom's face drained of color. My dad tried to laugh it off, saying, Grandpa must have been confused near the end, that there was no need to read anything else. Daniel ignored him, broke the seal, and unfolded several pages covered in my grandfather's careful handwriting and legal print. My heart hammered so loud I could barely hear him at first, but then the words cut through as if the room had gone silent. To my granddaughter, Sophia Hayes, Daniel read, I leave full controlling interest in Harbor Mine Analytics, the company I have quietly built and invested in over the last several years, as well as my personal investment accounts associated with it, held separately from my joint accounts with my son. He went on to explain that Harbor Mine was not some small side project. It was a growing tech company based out of Atlanta, built around an AI platform to help small businesses manage inventory, cash flow, and marketing decisions. It already had partnerships, contracts, revenue. It was worth far more than the $190 million my parents had just handed to Chloe. My dad finally stopped smirking. That's impossible, he blurted out. Dad barely knew how to use his phone. He didn't build a tech company. Daniel looked straight at him. With respect, Mr. Hayes, he learned. He sought outside expertise. He invested in the right people, and he insisted everything connected to Harbor Mine stay in his name only, so there would be no confusion about his intentions. My mother leaned forward, her voice sharp. He was not in his right mind when he did that. He was old. He was sick. He was forgetting things. He told us Sophia wanted nothing to do with him. Daniel's expression tightened. That is addressed here as well. He lowered his eyes to the page and continued. I am fully aware, he read, that Mark and Linda have kept Sophia away from me, changing plans, telling me she is too busy with her big city life, and telling her I am too tired or too confused to see her. They have told me she is ashamed of this family, that she does not call, that she does not care, I do not believe this. I have seen her messages disappear. I have had my calls redirected. I have watched them put Chloe in front of me with cameras and smiles while telling me Sophia wants nothing to do with an old man. My throat closed up. I remembered all the texts I sent that never got answered, the calls that went straight to voicemail, the times my mother said Grandpa was sleeping, or at a doctor's appointment, or having a bad day. Always when I tried to come home on short notice, Daniel kept reading. I have also noticed large transfers from my joint accounts into personal cards and accounts controlled by Mark and Linda used to fund travel, vehicles, and lifestyle expenses primarily for Chloe. These were never discussed with me. When I asked questions, I was told I had already approved them, even when I had not. I may be old, but I am not stupid. My mother shot to her feet so fast her chair screeched across the floor. That's a lie. She shouted, "He signed everything. We took care of him. We did everything for him while she was off in Chicago chasing some computer dream." She jabbed a finger in my direction like I was the problem here. Like my existence was the insult. My dad tried a different angle, his voice cooler. Dad clearly wrote that under pressure. He had moments of paranoia. You know how it is at the end? People get suspicious. Daniel didn't move. His tone never rose. But every word sounded heavy. Merhays, this codicil was drafted and signed in my office with medical clearance from his physician stating he was fully competent. I am prepared to present those records if necessary. Across the table, Chloe's mascara was starting to streak. She clutched the folder with her 15 million like it might disappear if she loosened her grip. So, what? She snapped, voice shaking. He just gives her some random company and leaves us looking like thieves. I took care of him. I was there. I posted about him. People loved our videos. Her choice of words hit me harder than I wanted to admit. I had been edited out of my own grandfather's life while she turned him into content. I stared at Daniel, hoping there was more, needing proof that I hadn't just imagined every email, every call. Every time I tried, he sighed, glanced over the last page, and then looked up at my parents again. Arthur knew there would be pushback. He said he anticipated that you would question his memory, his capacity, his decisions. He left further instructions and additional evidence, which I will present if this goes to court. My mom's hands were visibly shaking now. She grabbed my dad's arm. Mark, do something, she hissed. We can't let this stand. He can't just rewrite everything we agreed on. For the first time, my dad didn't have a quick answer. He stared at the papers in front of Daniel like he was doing the math and realizing too late that the numbers didn't favor him anymore. Sitting there, listening to all of it, pieces in my head started snapping into place. The missed holidays, the last-minute canceled visits, the way my parents always insisted on handling any banking to make things easier, the way Chloe flaunted trips and designer bags with no real job to back it up. Maybe you think you would have screamed or flipped the table or stormed out right then, but all I did was sit a little straighter and wait because one question burned in the back of my mind. If this was only the beginning of what Grandpa had hidden from them, what else was about to surface that they couldn't talk their way out of? When Daniel said my grandfather had seen his messages disappear, it snapped something loose in my memory, and suddenly I was not in that conference room anymore. I was back in Savannah, sweating through my t-shirt on the front porch, while my sister Chloe twirled in a brand new dance costume in the driveway. My mom was filming her with her phone, yelling, "Gimme a spin, baby. Followers love this," while my dad loaded suitcases into the trunk for their weekend trip to Orlando. I was 14. Holding a flyer for a summer coding camp at the community college, and when I tried to hand it to my mom, she barely glanced at it. "We already told you that thing is too expensive," she said, as still on Chloe, "maybe next year. Besides, you spend enough time on that computer of yours. Go outside or something." She shoved the flyer back into my hands like it was junk mail. That was the pattern. Money for Chloe's dance competitions, for her ring light, for her brand, for another pair of limited edition sneakers because it would look good on camera. For me, it was always maybe later, maybe next year, maybe when things are less tight. Except things never seemed tight when it came to my sister at school. It was the same script in a different room. Teachers would stop my parents at conferences to gush about Chloe's stage presence in the talent show, about how confident she was. When they got to my name, the comments shifted. Sophia is very bright, they would say, but she needs to participate more. She hides behind her projects. My mom would sigh and joke she'd marry that laptop if she could, and my dad would add, we're working on getting her out of her shell, like who I was needed correcting. The first person who handed me anything that looked like real investment was my grandfather, Arthur. One afternoon, he showed up in his old pickup truck with this beat-up laptop he had bought from a closing office supply store. It was slow and ugly and perfect. They say the case is scratched. The processor is old, he told me with a wink, but I say it just means it already has stories. Now it can help you write yours. He set it on the kitchen table like it was made of glass. My mom frowned at it and muttered something about more screen time, but Grandpa ignored her. He started bringing me books the way other grandparents bring candy. Intro to Python, data analysis for small business owners, Excel for dummies. He thought was hilarious. He hardly knew any of it at first, but he would sit with me at that same kitchen table and read the chapters out loud anyway, asking questions, making me explain what a loop was, what a data set was, what it meant to clean data. He would nod seriously, then look over his glasses and say, so in English, kiddo, how does that help somebody running a store like mine? My parents rolled their eyes whenever they walked past. She is never going to use that in real life. My mom would say, at least Chloe's stance gives her some presence. That matters. One night, I remember clearly, Chloe was trying on outfits for a video, sequins scattering across the bedroom floor, and my mom was zipping her up, telling her how gorgeous she looked. I came in, excited, holding a printout of a little chart I had made showing how Grandpa's store could save money by reordering certain items only once a month instead of every week. Look, I said, if he does this, he could save like $800 a year just on nails and screws. My dad glanced at it for half a second and said, that's nice, honey, but you can't run a business on pretend math from a teenager. Chloe laughed and said, wow, nerd attack, and went back to practicing her poses. The thing is, Grandpa did look at it. The next day he took me to his store, walked me down the aisles, and pointed at the shelves. Show me again, he said. Where would we change the order? We stood there between paint cans and power tools with my wrinkled piece of paper, and he listened like I was some consultant he'd hired. Later, he patted the top of my head and said, you see patterns the rest of us miss. Sophie, don't forget that. One year when I was 17, I entered a local hackathon on a whim. The prize was a small scholarship and a little recognition. Nothing life-changing. I built a crude dashboard that helped a hardware store track which items sold best in different seasons and which ones just sat there. It was basic, ugly, and half held together by duct tape code. But it worked. I remember standing on that stage in an ill-fitting blazer I bought from a thrift store, scanning the crowd for my parents. They had promised to come, said they were so proud. When the organizers announced my name and I stepped forward to accept the certificate, the only person cheering loud enough to cut through the polite applause was my grandfather. He was in his old plaid shirt, clapping like he was at the Super Bowl. Afterward, he hugged me so hard I could barely breathe and said, you just built something useful. Sophie, do you understand that? If you can help one store, you can help 10. If you can help 10, you can help 100. He dragged me over to the judges to make me explain my project again, peppering me with questions like, could this tell a guy when he's about to run out of concrete mix? And what about when paint goes on sale? Can it warn him ahead of time? My Parents texted me a picture of Chloe at the mall that same night, showing off a new pair of shoes, writing, "Sorry, honey, traffic was crazy. We will celebrate later." We never did. What we did do was repeat the same dynamic over and over. Chloe's milestones came with balloons and dinners out. My milestones came with a quick, "Good job" thrown over a shoulder. If that, meanwhile, Grandpa kept talking about ideas. What if there was a tool that told small shops when to reorder paint before they ran out? He asked, what if you could tell a bakery which cupcakes actually made them money, not just looked pretty? He would sit at the counter of his store after closing, ledger open, and ask me what I thought about different numbers. At the time, I thought he was just humoring me, making my little experiments sound bigger than they were. Now I knew better. He was thinking like an owner, like someone who had spent his life trying to keep shelves stocked and bills paid. My parents said I was weird, too intense, too focused on things no one cares about. Chloe laughed and told me I would end up alone in a dark room with a bunch of screens, that no one liked data people. Grandpa told me I was going to change the way people run their shops. He started mentioning things like partners and investors and platforms, words that sounded too big for our small town kitchen. Once, when I joked that no one would ever trust a 20-year-old girl with their business data, he shook his head. They don't have to trust you at first, he said. They just have to see it works. Sitting in that conference room years later, listening to Daniel read words my grandfather wrote about messages disappearing and money moving without his consent, it hit me that the only person who had ever truly seen value in what I was building had realized long before I did that the rest of my family never would. Maybe that was why he built Harbor Mind in secret. Maybe he knew that if he gave them access, they would strip it for parts, slap Chloe's face on it, and leave me with nothing but an empty congratulations post and a smile for the camera. Instead, he tucked it away, tied it to my name, and waited for a day just like this when their version of the story would finally collide with his. When the memories finally loosened their grip, I was back at that table with everyone staring at me like I had just been tracked in as evidence instead of family. Daniel was still holding the papers, but now he was watching my parents instead of reading. "You said I wanted nothing to do with him," I heard myself say, my own voice sounding strange in my ears. "You told me he was too tired to see me, that he was confused, that visits would upset him." My mom crossed her arms defensive. "Because he was," she shot back. "You live in Chicago, Sophia. You don't know what it was like day to day." I leaned forward. "I bought a last-minute ticket home to Christmases ago. Remember that? I showed up at the house, and you stopped me on the driveway and told me he was at some facility. No visitors allowed. Then I found out later he'd been at home the whole week." My dad's jaw tightened. "We were following doctor's advice," he said. "Stress wasn't good for him." "Funny," I said quietly. "He somehow had the energy to appear in all those videos Chloe posted." Chloe bristled. "Those videos made him happy," she snapped. "People in my comments loved him." He smiled. "He left. He got to feel special, not like some old man rotting in a recliner." Daniel shifted his attention to her. "Chloe," he said evenly, "did your grandparents ever know you were being compensated for some of those posts?" Her head jerked back. "What brand deals?" He clarified. "Affiliate links, sponsored trips tied to the content you filmed with Arthur." "Did you ever disclose the amounts to him or to Sophia?" Her cheeks went red. "That has nothing to do with this," she said. "I was building my career. Mom and Dad said Grandpa wanted to help. They told me it was all part of the plan." She threw a desperate look at my parents, and in that instant something in her eyes flickered, like she suddenly realized she might be out on a ledge all by herself. I swallowed and kept going. "What about the emails?" I asked. "The ones I sent asking to visit, the times I offered to bring my laptop and show him what I was working on." "You answered from his account?" "Mom, you wrote, 'Grandpa is proud of you, but he doesn't understand that stuff, sweetheart.' Just focus on your life. My mom slammed her palm on the table. So now it's a crime to protect an old man's peace, she shouted. You didn't see him crying when you chose Chicago over law school here. You didn't hear him say he didn't recognize you anymore. Daniel cleared his throat. For what it is worth, he said, Arthur never told me he did not recognize you. Sophia. He did tell me, very clearly, that he felt like his relationship with you was being managed for him. My dad scoffed. Managed is what you do for an elderly parent. He said, you should know that. You draft enough wills, they get paranoid. They imagine conspiracies. They think everyone is stealing from them. Daniel set the papers down and reached into his briefcase again. This time he pulled out a small black flash drive. He laid it on the table between us. Arthur thought you might say that, he replied, which is why he asked me to record a video when we prepared this codicil. It's dated, time-stamped, and accompanied by a statement from his physician. If you intend to suggest he was incompetent, you should see what that looks like. My mother's hand shot out. You are not playing some edited clip to smear us, she hissed. Turn that thing off. Daniel didn't even glance at her. He plugged the drive into his slim laptop the paralegal had brought in, turned the screen so everyone could see, and click play. My grandfather's face filled the screen, older and thinner than I remembered, but his eyes were clear. He sat in the same conference room we were in now, wearing a pressed button-down shirt, hands folded loosely in his lap. All right, Arthur, a younger version of Daniel's voice said off-camera. Just say in your own words why you're here. Grandpa took a breath. My name is Arthur Hayes, he said. I am choosing to change my will because I have become aware that my son and his wife have been using my trust in ways I did not approve. I have seen money leave my accounts that I never agreed to. When I ask questions, I am told I am confused. He looked straight into the camera. I am not confused. I am old. But I know what I've earned, and I know who I wanted to go to. My dad muttered something under his breath. But no one stopped the video. Grandpa continued. I love all my grandchildren, he said, but only one of them shares the way my mind works. Sophia understands numbers. She understands systems. She built a little thing on her computer that helped a store like mine, and never even bragged about it. He chuckled softly. Mark never listened when I talk business, and Linda loves appearances. But Sophie listens. My chest hurt. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until the room started to spin again. On the screen, Grandpa's expression darkened. I have also seen how they keep her away from me, he said. Visits canceled. Calls dropped. I get told she is too busy with her big city job. Then I hear from Ruth that Sophia drives all the way down and my son sends her home from the driveway. I know what that is. That is control. That is fear that the two of us will talk and compare stories. He shifted in his seat, anger flashing across his features in a way I had rarely seen. If they are watching this, it means they are contesting my decision, he said. It means they are once again trying to take what does not belong to them. So let me make it plain. Harbor Mind Analytics. Every share, every related account is for Sophia. Not because she is my favorite, but because she is the only one who can use it for what it is meant to do. He paused, eyes glistening. Help the little guys. Help the people running shops like I did, who never had these tools. Daniel's voice came back in the recording. Arthur, are you making this decision under pressure from anyone? Grandpa gave him a look like the question insulted him. The only pressure I feel is time, he snapped. I am making this choice now while I can, because I know if I wait, they will convince some doctor to write me off as senile and sign whatever they put in front of me. I want this on record before that happens. The screen froze on his face, then went black. No one spoke. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioner and Chloe's uneven breathing. My mother's mascara had fully surrendered, black streaks cutting down her cheeks. She looked at my dad like he was supposed to have some way out of this. some legal loophole or clever line that would undo what we had all just seen. Instead, he stared at the blank screen, fingers drumming a frantic rhythm on the table. "You can take that to court," he said finally, voice hoarse. "But it doesn't change the years we spent taking care of him. A jury will see that. They will see what we sacrificed." Daniel closed the laptop with a quiet click. "You are free to challenge the will," he said. "If you do, the video, the financial records, and the physician's statement regarding Arthur's capacity will become part of the public record." He glanced briefly at Chloe, whose influence or life depended on public perception. "And given the nature of the transfers we have documented, there may also be questions raised that go beyond probate court. That was the moment my dad's fingers stopped tapping, the moment my mother stopped shouting, and the moment I realized this was not just about who got what. This was the beginning of something much bigger. And for once, they were the ones who should be afraid of what came next. The fight my parents promised never made it to some dramatic jury trial with witnesses crying on the stand. Once Daniel filed the codicil, the video, and the bank records, their bluff collapsed under the weight of numbers they couldn't charm or cry their way round. There were meetings. Of course, they hired a lawyer who walked into the first conference room loud and confident, shaking hands to hard, telling my parents not to worry, that these things are always negotiable. He walked out after the first disclosure, hearing looking like he needed a strong drink and a different client. The court appointed a forensic accountant to go through years of transactions on my grandfather's joint accounts and every family expense that had quietly padded Chloe's brand, and my parents' lifestyle started showing up in spreadsheets and exhibits instead of Instagram stories. The judge didn't care how many videos Chloe had posted holding Grandpa's hand or how many heartfelt captions she'd written about cherishing moments. He cared about the power of attorney my dad had used to move money out of those accounts for unspecified personal expenditures. He cared about timing, transfers right before luxury vacations, right before a new SUV, right before Chloe's sponsored trips that somehow got paid partly out of Grandpa's funds. He cared about the fact that when Arthur questioned those withdrawals, emails mysteriously vanished. When their attorney tried to argue that Arthur had verbally approved everything, Daniel slid the video across the table, and the judge watched the part where my grandfather looked straight into the camera and said, "I have seen money leave my accounts that I never agreed to. When I ask questions, I am told I am confused. I am not confused." After that, there wasn't much room left to spin. The medical report attached to the file confirmed he'd been evaluated as competent when he changed his will. The accountant's report laid out the misuse of funds in columns that didn't care about anyone's feelings. The court validated the codicil and confirmed Harbor Mind Analytics, and the associated accounts were mine, exactly as Arthur intended. On top of that, the judge ordered my parents to repay what they had taken from the joint accounts, plus interest and penalties. They didn't have it. They had been living like the money would never run out. To even begin making a dent, they had to sell the big house in Savannah with the white columns and perfect lawn my mom used to pose on for holiday photos. The house she once called our legacy. They sold the 2 high-end cars they loved to park in the driveway just to be seen, the ones Chloe used as props in her day in my life vlogs. Word got out. Because of course it did. Small towns are cruel and efficient that way. The same neighbors who used to rave about Linda's taste in decor started whispering at the grocery store about mismanaged funds and financial abuse of any older people who once envied them now crossed the street to avoid awkward conversations. Mark was put on leave from his job at the logistics company pending review, and it didn't take long before that became terminated for college.